By the way, Victor Banjo also sent messages to Papa, but let me read to you what Wole Soyinka said about it. It says here, the crux of his message was this: let them understand in the West that I am leading not a Biafran army, but an army of liberation, made up not only of Biafrans, but of other ethnic groups. Again, this is what happens when you think that you are detribalized. Make the governor of the West and other Western leaders understand this. Urge them not to be taken in by any propaganda by the federal government about a Biafran plan to subjugate the rest of the nation, especially the West. Guys, just a pause. If you compare this to the letter that that Ojukwu wrote to Victor Banjo, you would understand one of the reasons Banjo delayed before he tried to enter Yoruba land. Up until this moment, this must be around June, when because the war did not start until July 6th, right? But Biafra was declared on May 30th. Around this time, Victor Banjo was still believing the idea that, I'm just working with him, I'm just trying to get into the West, to liberate the West. But when you read the letter that Ojukwu wrote in August of 66, I've read it here before, we can't go through it, but let me just give you like a little bit of it. The idea basically was that one of the things Ojukwu told Victor Banjo in that letter was that he would give him the soldiers, he would give him the arms and ammunition that he required, but when they go into Yoruba land and liberate Yoruba land, that he and Biafra reserve the right. You know what? I'm not going to read the entire letter. I just want to read that particular portion so that I'll quote him correctly. After clearing the question with my executive council, I, as the commander-in-chief of the Biafran Armed Forces, who is speaking here, Ojukwu, have decided to place at your disposal Biafran forces for the liberation of Yoruba land on the following clear conditions. Let me just read some of the conditions. Number one, you have nothing to do with the military administrator in the Midwest territory. That's the territory that he, as Oga, went to liberate. Number four, Biafran troops will, after the liberation of Yoruba land, remain in that territory only for as long as we in Biafra consider it necessary for the Yorubas to consolidate their position and sovereignty against any external threat. This letter was written on 22nd August 1967. I'm reading the book by Fadeton Ogunsheye called A Break in the Silence. This, you see the letter that Ojukwu wrote to Victor Banjo. So you are saying to Victor Banjo that Biafran troops will, after the liberation of Yoruba land, remain in Yoruba territory only for as long as we in Biafra consider it necessary for the Yorubas to what is the meaning of only for as long? For as long could be 1 year, it could be 10 days, it could be 3 months, it could be 20 years. Sorry, somebody wrote on YouTube. So the thing is, that was not what they had. That was not the agreement before he got into this. How do I know? Because of what he told Wole Soyinka. Let me read again what he said to Soyinka. He says to Soyinka, he says, let them understand in the West that I am leading not a Biafran army, but an army of liberation. At this point, he had not even gone to the Midwest though. Shengbo. Yes, he was leading the 101st Brigade of Biafran Army. Yes, he had led the militia, but at this point, the Midwest had not been invaded. Soyinka had gone to meet him in Enugu. While he was in Enugu, he's giving us his plan. What's his plan? Let me read again. Let them understand in the West that I am leading not a Biafran army, but an army of liberation, made up not only of Biafrans, but of other ethnic groups. Make the governor of the West and other Western leaders understand this. Urge them not to be taken in by any propaganda by the federal government about a Biafran plan to subjugate the rest of the nation, especially the West. As at the time that Victor Banjo was talking to Soyinka, he was saying that the idea of Biafra taking over Nigeria was propaganda. He was saying that don't listen to the federal government, though. They are saying that these Biafra boys want to take over Nigeria, want to take over Yorùbá land. It's mere propaganda. Don't listen to them. This was in June. 2 months later, Ojukwu writes him a fantastic letter. And this is what he says. Biafran troops will, after the liberation of the Yorùbá land, remain in that territory only for as long as we in Biafra consider it necessary for the Yorùbás to consolidate their position and sovereignty against any external threat. If you are Yorùbá, you're not Moali, at this point you begin to think, wait though, and that's one of the reasons I believe Victor Banjo waited a bit just to think about all these things again while he was in Benin. But we'll get to that later. Number 5. On the liberation of the Yorùbá land, you will be appointed military governor of that territory. Number 1, that's insulting. Who are you to appoint the Yorùbá administrator? Who are you? Let's continue. Number 6. The liberation of Western Nigeria will be a prelude to the liberation of all Yorùbás up to the River Niger and the severance of all connections between the West and the North at Jeba. So Ingo help us, we go take back Western Nigeria. Then we'll not travel all the way to Jeba because, of course, Yorùbá land reached Jeba, which is true. But everywhere will still be occupied by Biafran territory for as long as they deem necessary. You see how they are helping us, how they are liberating us. They are just jumping from fire pan to fire. The North is dominating you. You want to liberate Yorùbá land and put us under, the domination of the Igbos. That was a bright idea. But let's continue. It says here, this one is mad. During the period of Biafran troops' presence in your territory, all political measures, statements, or decrees shall be subject to the approval in writing by myself or on my authority. In other words, whatever we're going to be doing in Yorùbá land will be based on what Ojukwu tells us. After all, they are liberating us, so it's fair, Abi? No, it's not. Number 8. Should our troops arrive, Banjo is a fool for himself for believing him and not watching him closely. Let's be careful not to just call him. This came on the 22nd of August. They've been working together since since June. This was not the agreement. See how he was talking to Soyinka? Look at what this one now wrote on after. By the way, he made sure he did not write this letter until Banjo had already done what he was sent to do in the Midwest. So he made sure he had gone. He was in the Midwest fighting Biafra's war. It was Biafra's war. We'll get there. When he was now there, he now sent him a message. Okay, now go to Yorùbá land. When you get there, I'm going to control everything you are doing there. Oh. You didn't tell him that before he even left. So I know that a lot of people are angry and saying Banjo is a fool. It's not like that. That was not the agreement. Just trying to explain so that we understand that, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Originally, the agreement was, let me tell you what the plan was. The agreement was, I will fight for you. I'll lead your troops. When I'm done safeguarding your space, you will give me soldiers that I, on my own authority, will then lead. I will then lead to Yorùbá land to push out the Hausas and the Northerners out of Yorùbá land, and then I'll liberate my own people. That's the issue. And Ojukwu said, oh, that's fine. So whenever you need those people, I'm going to give you the people, I'll give you the money, I'll give you everything. The arms and ammunition, even gave him money when we were going to Midwest, but he returned the money much later. We'll get to it in the conversation. So that was the agreement. And that was what Banjo had in mind when he left the East and he got to Midwest. It was while he was in Midwest that this letter was written. I'm going forward, but we'll soon go backward again to go back to discuss how he entered the Midwest. But let's just get this. I want to connect this with his conversation with Wole Soyinka. So with Soyinka is saying, tell them all this thing is just propaganda. But 2 months later, I discovered that maybe he was the one who was naive. So he says, you can say he was naive, or you can't say he was a bad person or anything. But naivety is not an excuse anyway. So he says, during the period of Biafran troops' presence in your territory, all political measures, statements, or decrees shall be subject to approval. A vassal state? No. Movies and music? No. He wasn't trying to make Yoruba land a vassal state of Biafra. He was making Yoruba land a part of a new nation. I'll read it to you. I'll get there. Mumbo. Then he says, number 8, should our troops arrive and liberate Lagos? Should our troops arrive and liberate Lagos, the government of the Republic of Biafra reserves the right to appoint a military administrator for the territory. He will be the one to determine the administrator of the Western region. He will also be the one, by the way, he already determined the administrator of the Midwest. We're going to read that later. And make sure it was an Igbo person. Then he will also determine the administrator of the West and then administrator of Lagos. Ojukwu will be the one doing all of these things because, again, he's from a better tribe than everybody. You know, he's a special tribe. Then he says that administrator will be in office until they merge Lagos with the rest of Yoruba land up until Jeba. But all the decisions that will be made in that space will be by Ojukwu himself. Now, hold on here. I want to read something to you from Anthony Nauro. The book I was reading from, by the way, it's called A Break in the Silence by Efadeto Mogusheye, and the letter I was written was the one Ojukwu wrote to Victor Banjo. Let me read something to you from 1968, 12th August 1968, Anthony Nauro. This is from Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Kirk Green. This is page 299. Captured documents now confirm that the intention of the former Eastern authorities was to conquer the former Midwestern and Western regions, and then in a later phase, subdue the former Northern region. This was not surprising. Igbos need to work and trade over the whole country, which they have always known in this century as their country. The rebels did subvert the Midwestern state and occupy it for 6 weeks in August and September 1967. Then the slogan was Southern Nigeria Solidarity, not Igbo Survival, until they marched to the west and Lagos was halted at the decisive Battle of Ore in the western state. Ojukwu's goal was not Biafra. Ojukwu's goal was Nigeria. Captured documents now confirm that the intention of the former Eastern authorities was to conquer the former Midwestern region, conquer the Western region, and then in a later phase subdue the former Northern region. And so when you speak to a Victor Banjo in June of 66 or June of 67, and he tells you they're not trying to dominate anything, what are you saying? They're not dominating anything, it's just propaganda. How is it different from an obedient Yoruba? You're just, I can't go see big deal now. I know this person now, is my friend now, we've spoken, these are my people. And what you notice is that it's a long train. This vision is very consistent. You will see it in the Igbo National Caucus, you see it in the Igbo State Union, you see it in Charles Onyema, you see it in Azikiwe, you see it in Ojukwu. It's a train. You also see it in the generality of some of them. I don't want to mention their names right now, even in Nigerian politics today. It's about the country becoming this. And why? There's only one reason for this. Only one. There is scarcity back at home. That's the only reason. And that thing that they decided to do in the 40s, it's what they still believe. And it's sad. But guess what? I'm not against them. Everybody is free to dream. Two things. Number one, that dream will become their nightmare. It has already become their nightmare. It will be their nightmare from generation to generation, because there's no way you will have that mindset towards other people and you will succeed. So that would be the nightmare. But away from them, with our own people, you have to get it. Don't be like Victor Banjo was a pure-hearted person. But you see, naivety is not an excuse. My person now, or they shebe. Holy Shebel.